Today we got the opportunity to hear Pastor Matt Powell. He has served as senior pastor at First Baptist Church Tupelo. Started his ministry at First Baptist Church in May of 2016, and he holds degrees from Mississippi College and Southern Baptist Theological Seminary. He and his wife Andrea have 4 daughters and 2 sons. Wonderful opportunity to hear a great story. Matt Powell.
I want to begin by thanking you for this opportunity to have me here and allow me to be a part of the Rotary Club. It's hard enough to get excited about hearing from a preacher on Sunday. It should be against the law to hear from one on Monday. So, but here we are.
This is the crew.
Okay. I got it. But I'm delighted and humbled to be here. I know, as Ron has just mentioned, it has been quite a week that is behind us. And politics is like business for me, subjects I know nothing about, but it doesn't stop me from having opinions. But when it comes to my posture as a pastor, and also as an American citizen, I believe as a Christian that praying for those in authority and praying for peace is not a political issue. And I would encourage you to do that regardless of how you feel about what has happened, that prayer is not political and peace is not political either. And I just want to encourage you with that today. I want to talk with you, not in a sermon form, but just to tell you a little bit about another word that starts with P. Did anyone take Latin in college or maybe Latin in high school, something like that? All right. So if we were to look at the word providence, it's a word that is used often. You can find it even written on our monuments, etched in marble in Washington, D.C. What is the word providence all about? Well, if you've taken any Latin, you know the word pro means before. All right. Now, what's the rest? Where's the vidence? What is that taken from? Well, we use the V sound in English, but in Latin it would be wa. So it's taken from the Latin verb video, or where we get our word video. Okay. Now, why do we call video video? Because video means to see. So pro video is to see before, or to foresee. And I am fully persuaded, as a person of faith, as a follower of Christ, that this is the overwhelming way God works in his world. Certainly, if you open the Bible, and we can also hear about fantastic stories even out of the biblical period, where things just happen inexplicably and miraculously and undeniably. However, the overwhelming majority of history is not filled with such occasions. They are rather filled, and most of our life is filled with moments of providence. I think that you've had these things happen as well. It's something that happens in your life, and you look back and you go, wait a second. Something has been at work in the shadows of my life, even in the bright moments and the dark moments. Something was at work, or more importantly, as I believe, someone. I want to share with you just a few lines, and then I want to tell you a brief story of what has really brought this very forcefully into my life. This comes from an old English hymn. It says, God moves in a mysterious way, his wonders to perform. He plants his footsteps in the sea, and he rides upon the storm. Deep in unfathomable minds of never-ending, never-failing skill, he treasures up his bright designs and works his sovereign will. Ye fearful saints, fresh courage take. The clouds ye so much dread are big with mercy and shall break in blessings on your head. Judge not the Lord by feeble sense, but trust him for his grace. Behind a frowning providence, he hides a smiling face. His purposes will ripen fast, unfolding every hour. The bud may have a bitter taste, but sweet will be the flower. Blind unbelief is sure to err and scan his work in vain. God is his own interpreter, and he will make it plain. That's a hymn by the name of God Moves in a Mysterious Way, his wonders to perform. Let me tell you a little bit of how I have seen providence at work in my life and how I am now more persuaded than I've ever been in my life that there is more to this world that we can see, and someone is in control. I want to show you a picture of my family. This is my family in 2017. If you see there on the screen, you can see me there, and I'm holding my son Judah. This is my precious wife, my childhood sweetheart. I met her in the 4th grade, but waited till 7th grade to get serious. And unfortunately, if you were to ask her, she has no memory or recollection of my existence until the 8th grade. So that means there was 4 fruitless years of me stalking her until I was able to flag her down. These are our 3 oldest girls. That's Ashlyn, a student at Tupelo Middle School. She, by the way, I'm just bragging on her for just a moment, a proud parent moment, just won the bronze medal, and her team won gold for Tupelo cross country at the state meet. Super proud of her. Also, this is Adeline Kate. She is also a student with Tupelo Public Schools. She goes to Lawndale Elementary. And that is Ainsley that my wife, Andrea, is holding there. And of course, this is me holding my son, Judah. This is a 2017, our life, our picture book, fairy tale life here in Tupelo. This is a close-up of my son and our cat there at our home. Such a sweet little boy. Judah, he was about, I'd say, 3.5 years old in this picture. This would have been the fall of 2017. Also, this is my son with Dr. Frank Osei. He works with the Children's Hospital of Mississippi here. And just to pause here a moment and tell you about Dr. Osei, he's a cardiologist. A little bit about my son Judah's story. My son was born with a congenital heart defect. He was born with what is called transposition. What that means is your pulmonary artery and your aorta are backwards. Perhaps you've heard of the expression before, blue baby. My son was born as a blue baby and was suffocating even though he was breathing because his blood was not routed in the right directions. He had emergency surgery at only just a few days of age at Blair E. Batson Children's Hospital in Jackson, Mississippi. We were residents at the time of the Home Seekers Paradise in Brookhaven, Mississippi. And our family was cared for as we received the expert care. Unbelievably, east of the Mississippi at that time, there were 3 hospitals that do his surgery, and one of them in our very home state of Mississippi. We were so proud to be here in Mississippi. Our hesitation in moving to Tupelo was that we would be far from Children's Hospital. And as my wife and I prayed about coming to First Baptist Church of Tupelo, the greatest burden of leaving Brookhaven was putting our distance, but for her, one of the greatest burdens was putting our distance between us and Blair E. Batson Children's Hospital. We then discovered they have an extension, a pediatric cardiac extension right here in Tupelo that partners with the North Mississippi Medical Center. And that's how we were introduced to Dr. Frank Osei. Moving forward, I want to show you a couple of more things here. I want you to see here, this is my backyard. This is in 2018, specifically January the 26th. And by the way, I know you're thinking, why in the world are you showing me pictures? Well, I am now, as a pastor, when I visit people in their homes, all we do is look at pictures. So that's what I'm doing to you today. All right. So, but anyway, this just helps you visualize what my life has looked like. The man in this picture is a guy who just recently retired from Tom Bigby Power Association. He is a man by the name of Ricky Edwards. He worked there for many years. On the 26th of January, 2018, I had gone over a few weeks earlier and collected some Christmas trees as people put them by the road. And I had fixed with a friend cinder blocks on the trees, and I was going to sink them into our neighborhood lake to increase my chances at crappie fishing there in Spring Lake off of Thomas Street. Well, that morning at 4 in the morning, the strangest thing happened in our house. Half of the power in our house went off. I've never had that happen before. The power was either on or off, but it was the strangest thing. One appliance would work, but the other one wouldn't. We went and checked the circuit breaker box. We had no idea what was happening. We did not know that a supply line had vibrated loose under our driveway. So I was supposed to be gone. Remember, I'm talking about Providence. I was supposed to be gone that day, dropping Christmas trees in our lake. I was frustrated because now the power company has come to my house. I need to be there for this to take place. I can't go drop these Christmas trees, so they're just going to have to sit in the yard, and I don't want that to happen. I was frustrated, and instead, what happened is I ended up spending the day at home. And I had dropped Judah off earlier that morning at Mother's Day out at our church, and I picked him up early afternoon because I wanted him to be able to see the Tom Bigby men as they worked. That's him in our front yard there in our neighborhood. You can go to the next picture. This is a man by the name of Mr. Shannon. This is Mr. Ricky, two of the men who worked for Tom Bigby. He was, in fact, very kind. When he was running that excavator there, I had 2 crepe myrtles, which, yeah, that's all I'm going to say about crepe myrtles. But they were planted too close to the house by a previous owner. And I asked him, I said, I know you're here to fix the power. I said, but would you be so kind as to dig up those crepe myrtles? And I'll give you some money. And he just said, I won't take any of your money. He said, I just need to know, are you a Mississippi State Bulldog fan? And I said, I am today. And he dug them up for me. And shortly, probably 10 minutes after he left, my children were running around in the front yard having the most wonderful time. They were playing a game of pirates and hide and go seek. And then I believe you can go to the next picture. It led to the absolute unthinkable. My son, playing healthily and happily in the yard, literally laid down like this. Not a collapse, laid down and was gone. It happened right in front of me. I was standing next to my friend and neighbor, Ricky Jackson. He's retired from Renaissance Bank. He's formerly a bank examiner. We rushed him to the hospital. We were received with open arms into the emergency department here at the North Mississippi Medical Center. We received the best care you could possibly receive in that terrible situation, but he was gone. They tried for 1 hour to revive him, but he was gone. No alarm, no poor health leading up to it. He passed all of his cardiology appointments with flying colors. In fact, he had just had one a week before. Everything looked perfectly normal. They said, your son's going to be a happy, healthy boy. He can play football, run track, do whatever he wants. He'll live a normal lifespan. And then January the 28th, 2018, there he was. Our whole life just fell apart. My fairy tale childhood sweetheart, these 4 wonderful children that I had, all of a sudden collapsed right in front of me. This is a picture of Frank Jose. This is us in the emergency room. It's edited. I've cropped this picture down, but we're holding our son. And this is after he's been declared dead. And Dr. Jose is a specialist, and he was actually in Oxford that night and drove home straight to the emergency department, even after it was all done. And he walked in and he put his arms around us and he cried. Not only did he cry, he prayed for us. And he just said, I'm so sorry. I cannot express to you the meaning of community that we felt from this medical professional. Not just from him, but from all of the doctors, Dr. Morgan, Dr. Patel, the emergency room doctors that assisted us. Also, the waiting room was filled with people within just a few minutes, of people who came to check on us, to see if we were okay, to pray for us. But our world had just unraveled. It led to the largest outpouring of kindness that my family has ever received. You can't really tell, perhaps, but this is my front yard. There's probably, Amanda, you were there that night. I don't know what, 150, 200, 300 people came to my front yard, scared my neighbors to death, came to my front yard and just sang hymns to us while we were inside with my family. This is just a few days before his funeral. Judah had over 2,200 people come to his visitation, 3.5 years old, overwhelming. At Calvary Baptist Church, where I'm speaking today, we had the funeral here. They just loved us, as well as other churches here in the community poured out their kindness to us. I want you to see this. This is where my son is buried in East Tennessee. This is a family community. And if you're familiar with the Blackberry Farm at all in East Tennessee, if you know that place, then you know exactly where I'm from. Because the Powell Farm, where I'm from, we share a fence with the Blackberry Farm. So if you've ever been there or know where that is, that's my home. And the cemetery is right there on that road, West Miller's Cove. That's where I'm from, and that's where he is buried. He was a superhero fan. You can see the Super J there. That I didn't even know this was possible on gravestones, but this all of his little superheroes there. And if you go to the next one, I'll show you the back. This is a picture of him actually on our family land up here. On our family land at our family farm, that is him walking into the sunset. And we had a picture of him wearing one of his costumes because he loved his superheroes. But then our favorite real life hero is Davy Crockett. I'm a Tennessean, keeping that in mind by birth. But anyway, he loved and could sing every verse to the Disney song, Davy Crockett. And right here, if we have on the back, so he packed his gear and his trusty gun, and he lit out a grinning to follow the sun. Davy Crockett, king of the wild frontier. And we sought to honor him as best we could, and now we go and visit his grave as often as we possibly can. Now, let me express to you, when you lose someone, you do heal. You do heal. Whether it's a wife, whether it's a child, it's awful. It's devastating. Whether it's a husband, it's devastating. You do heal, but the healing is not like from a normal wound. It's like healing from an amputation. The bleeding stops, but a part of you is gone forever. And when that happened in my life and in Andrea's life, our family was now upended. It was broken. There was a missing seat at our table. We had not even celebrated Christmas because it was January with my family. And he still had Christmas presents under my parents' tree that are still wrapped to this day that he never got to open. Just devastating for our family. And then we pick up pieces and you try to move forward. Well, I want to talk to you about that word providence. I told you I was supposed to be gone that day when I was there at the house. The day I was supposed to be sinking Christmas trees, instead I spent all day with my son. Also a providence of another thing, and I don't know where you are religiously and what your thoughts are about the unseen world and things like that. I'm just going to tell you the story of our experience. The day that he died, when I dropped him off at daycare, it was early because remember, I had to get back home to get to Tom Bigby. I dropped him off early, and at the daycare place, if you drop them off early, they have to stand in the hall and sit next to the wall until the teachers are all there and there's a hall monitor. He was all by himself that day, and the teacher was monitoring him, a lady that we knew. She didn't tell us this until several days after he died. She said, I just have to tell you this. She said, the strangest thing happened Friday morning. She said, Judah was sitting all alone in the hallway there at the church. And he was sitting there, and then all of a sudden he looked up and started interacting like he was talking with someone. And she said, no one was there. She said, I even mentioned to my coworker, look at Judah. Who is he talking to? Now, I've got another child that has an imaginary friend. Judah was not one of those. She said, he's talking to someone. And the lady actually went down the hall and even asked him, who are you talking to? And he pointed up and he started jibber jabbering who he was talking to. And she couldn't make sense of it. And she just said, "You silly boy, just come along." And she said she didn't think anything more about it until she had heard that he had passed away. I don't know what happened there, but I can tell you this. That moment of providence that allowed that woman to see that sight helped our hurting hearts in such an incredible way. There were moments of providence all along the way of how people were in just the right place at just the right time, that the doctor meeting us there, me being there, even in all of the tragedy, all of the absolute tragedy, it was still little providences all along the way. Coincidences? Yeah, maybe. Providences, that's what we believe. But in picking up the pieces, how do you move on after you lose somebody? Well, one of the things that we found out about loss is it doesn't matter what happens. Monday comes. Monday comes. And you cannot stop it. It keeps coming. And you cannot stop it. You cannot slow it down. You cannot step off the train and say, "I'm not going to go any further." Life forces you forward. And it's been in our experience through this journey that we've seen other providences along the way as well. But when you lose somebody, especially me personally, I've been an optimist for the majority of my life. But after losing Judah, realizing the horrors that can happen, it's hard to be optimistic. Because he's not my only child. At that point, I had 3 more. What if something happened to them? What if something happened to my wife? And then our life was transformed. God sent us a little girl. I don't know if it'll be the next picture or not. Oh, this is my lovely wife, Andrea. This is Lucy. She came along a little bit after the passing of Judah, almost a year after Judah's passing. We named her Lucy because the name means light. And in such a dark season, she came along into this world. But even after having another child, one child doesn't replace another. Our hearts were so broken. And how could we pick back? How can you get back to the place where you can, like the prophet David said, expect to see the goodness of the Lord in the land of the living, as opposed to expecting everything to fall apart? Well, things started to get a little better. And then we got unthinkable news. Well, first, it was some really happy news. We found out in December of last year, we were expecting a child. 4 days later, my wife was diagnosed with a malignant tumor, and she was diagnosed with breast cancer. 4 days after she found out she was going to have a baby. Unthinkable. We didn't know what to do. But nonetheless, here in Tupelo, we, over the past year, have seen over 16 different specialists. And if you know Tupelo, I live in Spring Lake. I have not driven more than 10 minutes to see one of them. Tupelo has a population under 40,000 people. And my wife has seen 16 different specialists for her care. If that's not the providence of God in our life, I don't know what is. My wife was diagnosed with cancer, but then it's the unthinkable kind. Her cancer was actually fed by her hormones, which increased greatly during pregnancy. So then we were facing another question. What do we do? If we treat my wife, it will end the pregnancy. If we treat her immediately, it will end the pregnancy. They will actually have to do a therapeutic ending of the pregnancy in order to treat her. But then we lose our baby. And it was one of those things, by the way, that whole conversation, and I know our nation has that conversation politically. Let me just tell you, regardless of where you stand politically on that issue, it looks a whole lot different when you're sitting in the chair yourself. And it is a humbling thing to be there, because I love my baby and I love my wife. It was an unthinkable place to be. Well, we had decided that if the cancer was not in the lymph nodes, that we would proceed. And that if the cancer was in the lymph nodes, that means it was advancing very rapidly, and we were not sure what we were going to do. There was some lymph node activity that they were concerned about, and they tested it, and there was no cancer according to the test in the lymph nodes. So we delayed her treatment in order for the baby to become 12 weeks in the womb before she began major surgery, followed by chemotherapy and ultimately radiation. When she had her surgery at 12 weeks of carrying the baby, turns out they had been mistaken. There was cancer in the lymph nodes. What they had seen was actually cancer. They just missed it. That's the providence of God. Because had it been there, I don't know what would have happened. But God allowed that to not be discovered, I believe, in order to take care of her and to take care of the baby. Shortly thereafter, we find out the baby's a boy. My wife receives 6 weeks of chemotherapy while carrying a baby at 16 weeks along. After that, she also gives birth to the baby. And you can move forward here. This is my son, Peter. This is actually a 4-generation picture. This is on FaceTime, my grandfather in East Tennessee. This is my dad. And this is obviously me. This is my son, Peter. They are standing in the yard at the hospital because that's how you had to do hospital visits to see new babies. You had to look through the window. I want you to see the next picture as well. This is my sweet bride there holding the baby there in the hospital room shortly after, just a couple of days after. Also, we had many people come to see. Some of you may even know these people. This is Jack and Amy McFerrin, dear friends of ours. There were so many people that came to the window just to congratulate us and tell us how happy they were for us. Keep moving forward here. This is my wife now. This is after her radiation. This was actually at the lake on a Sunday. Oh. But anyway, preachers do it too. All right. This is us at the lake just a couple of weeks ago. It was our first getaway since all of this craziness happened. And you see her hair is beginning to grow back, and she's just as lovely as she's ever been. You see the Tennessee hat on my head, which means I'm misguided. But no, I love the balls. I saw one ball out there. Go Big Orange. This is our family. This is our family now. That's my oldest. Adeline Kate is the second oldest. Of course, there's me holding Lucy, Ainsley, and that's Peter, and then my wife. This is here at our home. And then one final picture here is this. This was just taken a couple weeks ago. Of course, getting children to smile in pictures is impossible. But this is the best one we could get. This was taken here in Tupelo, and this is our family. I show all of these things to you to say one thing. The providence of God is real. You know, if I could go back and choose this path, if I had an option to choose this path over a path where this didn't happen, would I choose a different one? Well, at least part of me says, absolutely. Who wants to go through that? But then at the same time, without this path, this one right here in the front and that one there that's being held on the side would not be here. We were done with children. How do you replace one for the other? I don't know. Here's what I'm saying to you today. Life is hard, but God uses hard things. And whether it's in your business, whether it's in your family, hard things open up doors of conversation that will open up in no other way. One of my dear friends, a guy by the name of Mitch Waycaster, many of you here in this room know, lost his son almost, I believe, 15 years ago, Clay. Mitch told me when all of this happened, by the way, the first time he saw me was in the hospital the night that it happened. He was the only person that when he saw me that night, he was smiling, and I'll never forget that. He gave me a hug, and he smiled, and he said, I'm so sorry, but it's going to be okay. And I'll never, never forget that. He told me a story about something that was told to him when he was in the hospital waiting on his son to get better. Ultimately, Clay passed away. He said a guy he only saw one time, this only one occasion, spoke to him, saw him in the hall. He said, I want to tell you something. Life is like a parade. You can only see what's right in front of you. But Providence sees the parade from beginning to end. I don't know where you're at today. I don't know where you're at when it comes to things like faith. I don't know where you're at in own personal struggles. I think if you've hurt in any way, you know what I'm saying, that pain opens up doors and conversation. There are people that I've tried to reach out to for years that would have they just kept arm's length. They didn't want to talk because they lost children. They were hurting. And as a pastor, I couldn't reach them. But then now my son's passed away. Now that my wife's had cancer, these doors begin to open up. So is it worth it? That's not for me to say. That's improper ways to think about tragedy. But is it all used in a mysterious way for God's good purposes and for our good? I can say from personal experience, yes. The sheet you have in front of you, there on the table, this is in memory of my son. There was an emergency department fund that was set up at the Create Foundation in partnership with Reliance Healthcare, which is the company that is partnered with the North Mississippi Medical Center in managing the emergency department. Reliance Healthcare also manages many emergency rooms beyond just the one here in the North Mississippi Medical Center. And they have used my son's story in his memory for this fund. So when children go into the emergency room, that's a scary, hard day. This emergency room fund allows children to receive a happy, so to speak, a little cape that they can put on that talks about Judas. It has a little tag on it that talks about Judas' story. And it tells, for instance, the doctor is or nurse is able to say, hey, put this cape on and be a superhero today. You can do it, especially if they're facing a test. For smaller children, it provides small toys for them and things like that. All of it, there are only certain things that are appropriate in an emergency room setting. So that's what the fund is set up for as well. There's also training that it provides physicians, assistants, and nurses, physician assistants and nurses when it comes to certain accreditations when it comes to taking care of children in emergency room settings. So if you feel so led or so inclined to be a part of Judas Super Kids, you can do so by going to the Create Foundation of North Mississippi and the Judah Marshall Powell Emergency Department Kids Fund. There are two of them listed on Create's website. Both of them go to the same place. I'm humbled that you would have me here today. I want to say, number one, I'm grateful that God loves me, that Jesus loves me. And number two, I could not imagine going through what we've gone through anywhere other than Tupelo, Mississippi. We are so blessed to be right here, and you are too. Thank you. God bless you.